Hello, hello, welcome everybody. Today we have Vinay Raman. Um, so it, we were talking about his charts and his company and the services he offers, and I was waiting and waiting for him to give me permission to record the conversation, and finally I just opened OBS and was like, I'm not getting this, so I better just start recording. So you just mainly missed me and him talking about the charts, the correlation, the different patterns, the really fun and exhilarating stuff. I'm just kidding. It's not, except for like nerds like me and Vinay. So, enjoy, kick back, relax. I'm also trying something new. I want you guys to rate and review, obviously, but I want you to take a screenshot of your favorite episode and tweet me at JRBOLTON under dash. It could just send me the photo, and I'll just try to reply to as many as I can possibly. So other than that, stay awesome, stay safe, and don't do anything crazy now, kids. Okay?
If that, I mean, if very broad association. So, and I think everybody knows that there's some stuff that is bigger than yourself, but it's hard to build a business based on squishy, touchy-feely stuff. But there's something there, right? And if you try to define stuff that's squishy, touchy, and feely with science, it doesn't work. By the same time, the people on the squishy, touchy, feely side, right, the woo-woo kind of side of things, you can't think in terms of logic and numbers because that doesn't work there either, right? Is that all resonating a little bit? So what we try to do is I call what for me, myself personally, and what we're trying to do as a company is how do we connect the woo-woo and the sensors? The sensors see 1 + 1 = 2 all the time. And if I can't see the 1 plus the 1, we can't get to 2. End of story, right? People over here on this, the woo-woo side are saying 1 + 1 can equal 50. And these guys are going, how the hell can that be? Because 1 + 1, or the whole is greater than the sum of the parts kind of thing, right? You can do magical things if you believe and achieve and look to something higher, right? And that's kind of what we've built as a company here, is the ability for people to see how the woo side of things actually makes a difference. And the word that I'll use is empathy. How does empathy add to your bottom line? I think we have a way to show how empathy adds to the bottom line. Caring about people, caring about their feelings, how they appear in the world, what space they're in, what mental state they're in, understanding how all that comes together, how your boss makes you feel at work makes all the difference in the case whether you will work hard for them or you won't, right? Isn't it better to get the people who are working with you alongside you to love what they do and they get their hearts into the job? Because if they will, then you don't have to ask them. They'll do it because they want to. I'll stop for a second there. I feel like I've been talking so much. Oh, so for me, it's just this idea that I've had this saying that I've always used, that I can pay for people's minds, but if I get their hearts, I win. And the reason why is so many companies talk about alignment of the company. 300-watt light bulb. I think I've told you about this. 300-watt light bulb versus the 300-watt laser. 300-watt light bulb is incredibly bright, but a 300-watt light bulb will burn through steel. That's super powerful because it's directed energy. How do you get everybody in the company to be directed energy? If you could do that, gosh, you can achieve incredible things that nobody else can do because they're not directed. Right? Everyone is going in 15 different directions. Another analogy is, why do you get alignment on your tires? Because if your left tire is going this way and your right tire is going this way, you don't go very fast, right? But both of them go in the same direction, you can drive really fast. How does that all sit with you? What thoughts are going through your mind as you hear that? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what if we could get everybody laser focused on what role they play? I mean, what regardless of the role that you play in the organization, that role is important. Now, if people understand what they do and they take ownership of that role, you don't have to, they feel like it's their own baby. They'll care and feed it. You don't have to ask them to do things. And it's a shift in mentality because I feel like I've worked in a number of roles in the past where the beatings will continue until morale improves. But that's because you keep telling them what to do, right? But if you're moving towards more of a coaching role as a leader, uh, well, gosh, then the person can figure it out themselves, and then they become incredibly efficient because they want to do it. So I uh, I feel like I'm doing all the talking here. So yeah, yeah. So I'll start with sort of a personal experience here. I went through a um, I went through a personality assessment, and when it came back, it told me on this. It's called the Culture Index. And I've done a lot of different assessments. This one came back and told me that I am on. There's four different types of people, categories of people. One is called visionary, which I fell into that visionary role. Even within visionaries, there's five different types of visionaries, and one of them is called the daredevil. That's what I was. The daredevil is foot on the gas all the time. They don't know how to slow down. And as soon as that they gave me that, I was like, gosh, that is. I mean, it's like made the hairs in the back of my neck stand up because it was so spot on. Because my whole life I've been talking. I'm fantastic at predicting the future. That is what my gift is. I just see trends and how they converge 25 years from now, and I've been right again and again and again. But how do you go tell people that I'm good at looking at the future, seeing the future? People are like, that's ridiculous, right? And it was for most of my life until I got this thing, and I said, "Oh wait, there's somebody else who thinks that as well." So I kind of gave myself the. Finally, said, "I don't need somebody else's permission to tell me that that's what I do well. They can laugh at me all they want. They'll just find out in the future that that's where we were heading from the beginning." I built an electronic medical records company back in 1999. I think we may have been one of the first three companies to build electronic medical records. It's the law now in the United States, and there's no company, no physical medical practice that can exist without using electronic medical records. Right, that 23 years ago. Right? Um, so coming back to your question in terms of how does someone lean into this who's never done this before, this is all about kind of validating either as an individual or as a leader. What are your suspicions? Are your suspicions right? And saying it's okay to have those suspicions, but start to learn instead of someone telling you, hey, this is what you'll do. Start to lean into yourself, become more self-aware of what you're seeing and what are the resultant effect of that is, right? So we come up with these behavioral profiles based on how you've been performing. So if you're a technician, for example, okay, and they say, I want you, people talk about KPIs, key performance indicators, right? I measure your performance. And they measure it and say, you visited 10 houses in a day, but they want you to do 15. So by that definition, you're not doing very well. But then if you go look at some other metrics, you actually make more revenue per stop. And the reason why is you have a great relationship with your customers. You have a conversation, you have great style. You talk to them about it. You talk them through the process and they say, well, do you guys do mosquito services too? Because you guys just came and sprayed for termites. Do you do mosquito? Yeah, like, yeah, let me tell you what it's all about. So you spend more time on site, but you get more upsells because you're a natural salesperson, right? And they're looking at how many stops you are. Well, you're not leaning into the strength of that individual, right? And now you get to see that say, yeah, but look, I'm a really good salesperson because I love talking to people and explaining things. That's where my strength is. So leader, instead of banging me over the head, rapping me on the knuckles for not making visits, lean into what my strength is. I'll do more upsells for you, right? Or there might be another person who just doesn't like to talk much, and that's perfectly okay. They're just incredibly efficient at getting their job done, right? They tell the person, here's what I'm going to do. They get it done and say, hey, I'm done with things. Do you have any questions? And they say, no, you made perfect sense. And boom, they move on to the next one. They're doing 18 stops a day. Well, now you don't want to judge them on upsell capability because that's not what they want to do, right? And trying to get them to upsell is pushing them out of a zone of what they want to do. They won't do it very well because you're pushing them out of a place where they want to go, right? Is that making sense? I'm a square peg in a round hole, right? I brought on recently a lady to be sort of my chief operations officer, and she's getting to the point where now, because I was doing a lot of the operations, she's getting to the point where she's running all of our technical meetings. She's like, Vinay, just let it go. That's not I want you out selling. I want you to start talking about the dream. I want you to start showing people these models that you've created so they can start to say, oh, this is how it all fits together, because I can sketch models till the cows come home, and they are really elegant and very quick and simple. That's what I'm good at. Me trying to figure out how to make a connection between two databases. Can I do it? Yeah, but that's not the best use of my time, right? The same way the person who makes 18 stops a day, the best use of their time is not chatting up customers. So yeah, that's right. Embrace. I mean, there's so many conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI stuff, right? Oh, we got to be fair. So many people are thinking about it the wrong way. They're thinking of it as a checkbox, right? Gosh, that's such a limited way of thinking about it. If you start to lean into each person as a genius in their own right, and you say, how do I unlock your genius, right? How do I tap into their superhero? Then if you let them behave as a superhero that they want, gosh, that superhero does. I mean, Aquaman is not superhuman in his ability to lift buildings up, right? Don't get him to do that, right? Get him to sit in the sea and take care of what is happening in the whirlpools or whatever else, the tsunamis. That's what he's supposed to do, right? You don't want him lifting up cars, right? Because that's a waste of his time, a waste of his talent. So if we find out what everybody's superpower is and allow them to lean into their superpower, not only do they feel incredibly valued, right? They won't leave because you're letting them be who they are best at, and give them the space to say, so I want to get. So what the leader's job then is to say, so here's the outcome that we're trying to get to. How do you think we can get there? Right? Ask that person to figure the problem out for you. Yep. Yep. Yeah, there's a term out there called servant leadership. This that you are a servant of all the people. So my role in this company is not to, and I don't use enable, I use empower. But it's fine. I mean, there's I've always thought of enabling as just it's just a word choice kind of thing, right? But my job is not to my job is to solve my problems and become very good at solving other people's problems so they have less friction so that they can be. You don't want a salesperson trying to enter information in, right? You want that salesperson on the phone asking their customers, how can I support you in your effort? That's what they're supposed to be doing. But if they're spending time trying to put proposals together and trying to write documents and then trying to find the leads, Well, are they going to be as effective as a salesperson? Because most people talk about efficiency. Let's make them as effective as possible. That's my job, is to get them to be as effective as possible in their role, right? If I can do that, then they feel incredibly valued and they go faster because they love it. And it'll show up in the way they talk to partners. They'll show up in the way that they talk to other employees, right? Other colleagues. It'll show up in the way that they talk to you. It'll show up in their loyalty to you, right? So it just yields so many benefits. They'll start coming and asking for advice when they don't know what to do. They'll say, hey, what do I do here? That's the kind of questions that you want your employees asking, your people asking. Is you don't want them saying, I don't want to ask because they're going to tell me what to do. You want them saying, I don't know what to do here. Can you help me out? That's the perfect question to answer as a boss, right? Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. And if we empower people to act like that, where they can be curious and inquisitive, just like we were all when we were 5 years old, we just kept asking why, because we don't understand. I say children see things in black and white, and as you become an adult, you start to see more continuums, right? Very few things are black and white as an individual, as an adult, right? The reason kids ask why so many times is because they don't understand the difference. They only see black and white. Well, there's a third color in there. There's a gray in the middle there. And as you get to 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, there's not just one shade of gray. There's 45,000 shades of gray, right? So people are asking because they want to start to see more color. They want to see more shades. And as they can start, if you as a coach can start to say, so this might be a little more of a dark gray versus a light gray versus a black versus a white. They get to make good decisions and they start to see it and they start to operate faster. It grows them as an individual. You don't have to grow them. They'll do it themselves. How does that, how's that sit with you? And here's the thing about this is a lot of people are like, well, look, I gotta have Timmy cleaning the shelves. I know, I mean, I know that's something we've got to do, but I've also got to have him up front because I don't have Susie and Timmy. I only have Timmy, right? He's got to cover both roles. Now, this is the whole point of instead of servant leadership, servant in my mind, I just don't like that word because I'm not subservient to anybody. No one should be, right? So I call it invitational leadership. And I say, so Timmy, I know you like doing the shelves. You're really good at that stuff. But we got people coming in the front. And I know you love the shelves, but I'd like to invite you to that outcome because that's the outcome we got to get to as a company. Can you help me figure out how we get there? Well, can I block off certain amounts of time that I'm doing stuff in the back and then maybe some times that I'm up in the front? Sure. And how do I support you doing that? Well, what if I just kind of, when someone comes in, I can ask them a couple of questions. And if I don't understand it, maybe I can just push them off the direction because that might be why Timmy doesn't want to do it because he feels uncertain that he will be able to handle the questions. Yeah, well, look, I'll always be available for you, Timmy. If you call, I will pick up on I'll pick up within 3 rings. Let's say for the first 6 weeks, I'll do that because I think you'll get there yourself, and I'll spend the time with you so you can answer those questions from people. How does that sound? All of a sudden, Timmy has just he's just solved the problem for you, right? You've invited him into the outcome as opposed to saying, "Go do this because I told you." Right? So you can get people to do things that they don't want to do if they understand what the value is and why it's important for the organization and why it's important for themselves. Right? Look, Timmy, if I get you doing the back shelves, that's great. But if I get you doing customer service as well, Timmy, that just opens up a whole bunch of doors and options for you. I mean, just think 6 months from now, and this is the way I talk to my employees. I'm not interviewing you for my job. I'm interviewing you for the next job that you're going to have after me, right? If you have built enough skills in what I've taught you, right, what you learned from our company, the next job should be easy for you to apply for. So if you go to Timmy and say, let me teach you customer service, because that's the next tier for you. Is that interesting to you? He goes, yeah. How do I do that? Let's get you on the front desk and I'll start teaching you those skills. Now, Timmy has an interest because he wants to make more money. He wants to move up the ranks. He wants to get to, going from X to X plus five, whatever, on an hourly basis, yearly basis, whatever, right? Does that make sense? Here's the best part about that conversation though, is that when you start talking to them about that, saying, hey, I'm training for the next job, it's holding me accountable to them as much as it's holding them accountable to me, right? So once you keep giving this person opportunities, and when they say, hey, I found something, hey, Vinay, there's a better way. Timmy comes to me and says, there's a better way to clean these shelves, right? Can I approach it this way? Instead of doing it 4 times a day, can I do a major reset of the shelves every night? And that's a much faster process. I don't know because I don't touch the shelves on a regular basis, right? I say, all right, let's give it a shot. Here's what I need, right? Here's the outcome that I need to get to. If you can do that your way, let's do it. Once you start giving people flexibility like that, they won't leave because they're going to go to the next boss and the person's going to say, so I need you to clean shelves every day and I need you to do customer service. And they're like, oh, I don't like the way this person talks to me. I'm not interested. Right? You set the bar too high for them. I call it the golden handcuffs. You put the golden handcuffs on your employees, then, right? They can't leave. It's too good for themselves. Yeah, that's right. And they will come in. I've had employees who've been on board with me for 6 months, and I've kind of given them. They've come to me and said, "Hey, I'd like to. I think we need to change something." I said, "All right, why?" They said, well, look, Vinay, we're going to start to have more organizational problems as we start to scale the company. We're going to have more things coming in. We just need a central place to keep track of everything. I said, that's interesting. I've been starting to think about the same thing. Can you come up with a plan of doing that? And they said, yeah, I'd love to do that. I just gave it to them. We now have a project management system as a result of them for, what would be a more junior level employee. They hashed out all the requirements. They went and talked to everyone, asked them what their requirements are. They built out a requirements document for the whole thing. This is what we need. Who's going to use it? Why are they going to use it? What purpose? What is the outcome? What is it going to look like? And they've now started running everything. Yeah. And what did I do? I just had to put a credit card in. That's it. So this person now starts to talk about the fact that they built from the ground up a project management system for my company. Yeah. Yeah. So she was the one I was talking to just before you and I got on the phone. And we're shifting a little bit of our podcast. She said, so then I think we're moving from live to offline podcasts because I think we have a lot more flexibility there and then our release schedule can be a little more consistent that way. And as we did that, she said, I think we need to change some of our intros and outros and things like that. And when we put visibility into the podcast, those kind of notifications and stuff like that. I said, yeah. She said, what should we do? I said, look, I got some initial thoughts, but you've been thinking about this a lot longer than me. What do you think we ought to do? Boom, 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 boom. I was like, yeah, that all makes sense to me. Why don't we just do that? Right. And I gave her a couple of pointers or perspectives that I had on things, but 98% of the idea was hers. So is she going to lean into it? Yeah, damn skippy she is. Yeah. That's right. She gets to call herself the podcast manager. I told her the role for her is to become a podcast producer, right? I want you to be able to go to the next podcast and say, I had, 50,000 downloads of this podcast. I'm responsible for that. Gosh, that's a powerful thing to talk about, right? That's it. Yeah. Yeah. And I think if if she does need to leave, I would be sad because I've had a fun time working with her. But my responsibility, well, if why are you leaving? Well, because I want more responsibility. Janine, do you think I'm going to give you more responsibility? Yeah. What do you want to do? Right? What that question won't even come up in her mind because she'll just ask me directly. Right? And Janine was just one example. Right? Lots of folks like that. So I had actually just looking at the time. I've got a couple. You know what? I got a lady that I'm not ready to talk with yet. Let me just email. Let me just email her real quick. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah. So I've pushed that off. I've got until 11 o'clock. If you're okay with that. Um, so I think what we've built here as a company is this ability to start to see the weight. Um, well, let me explain it to you in the terms of a model. So I built this pyramid, and I think of how familiar are you with quantum physics? Just sort of the theory of quantum physics. So the idea behind quantum physics is that there are multiple different dimensions that exist, right? There's the first dimension, which is one dimension of existence, right? There's two dimensions. And then we exist in the third dimension. When you look at a square on a piece of paper, right? That's in two dimensions, right? For all intents and purposes. Now, uh, if you look at things from a three-dimensional view to a second-dimensional view, if you draw a little stick figure with a heart on the right-hand side of the body, right, that person cannot imagine a stick figure with on the left-hand side of the body, right? That doesn't exist because in order to be able to put it on the right-hand side, you have to take it into three dimensions and flip that person over. That does not exist on the second dimension. You see what I'm saying? So what happens on the third dimension? Things that are really difficult to see or that are unimaginable on the second dimension become elegant on the third dimension. So we talk about seeing miracles. I mean, people talk about their kids, the miracle of children, or the miracle of these mountains and these wondrous things in nature, right? You go and see the Taj Mahal or the Hagia Sophia in Turkey, or you see the Grand Canyon, right? You go look at this thing, you're like, my God, this thing is amazing. It's a miracle that this was developed. Well, in the fourth dimension is time. Time is we cannot compress time. In the fourth dimension, time can be compressed. It can be controlled, right? We don't have the ability to do that. It's consistent for us. If you look at time as something that can be compressed, then all of a sudden, what we find is miraculous. Most things that we find miraculous are all based on time, right? That child growing up, my gosh, how do they, how did they get so good at baseball? Well, they've been playing for 15 years, but all you see is them playing baseball for that 30-minute game, right? Or the 30 minutes at their bat. You see the Grand Canyon. Well, it's taken 4.5 billion years for it to become the Grand Canyon, right? But you just take it in for that one, take it that one snapshot of what it is. You don't see 4.5 billion years. You just see 30 seconds, right? So most everything miraculous has a component of time which we can't control. So things in the fourth dimension are so elegant, look so elegant to what makes something look so miraculous or unattainable and unachievable for us. Yep. So let me phrase it slightly differently. Okay, time existed despite us. We just happen to call it time. Does that make sense? So whether humans are here or not, that continuum of things occurring exists. We just happen to say we got to name it in order to identify something, right? We got to put a name on it. We call it time, right? So does an orange have to truly be orange? It could be blue, but we just happen to name it orange. But the orange still exists as it is, right? We just happen to decide that that wavelength or that spectrum of light that it bounces back to us is what we call orange. So we call it an orange. That's all, right? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, no, I love that statement. So we have got, if you look through a set of sunglasses, right, into the world, everything's going to appear dimmer than what it actually is. If you look through a pair of blue glasses, everything's going to look blue, right? So think of the glasses as the set of lenses by which you look through. So think of your five senses as the lenses with which you see or perceive the world, right? We know that animals that don't have an opposable thumb can only do certain things, right? So we've got an additional layer of resolution, or um, our tool set is deeper than animals that don't have the opposable thumb because they can't pick things up, right? They can't grasp it, like, they can only dig. Yeah, right. So we have a tool set, but we're still relegated to the third dimension. Right? We can't move time back and forth, right? So we are physiologically bound to the third dimension because that's what our senses do. They see sight, they feel senses, they feel heat, they feel cold, right? We have got this tactile sense. Those are all third dimensional tool sets. So by default, we think we exist in the third dimension. If I can't touch it, it doesn't exist, kind of thing, right? Seeing is believing. That's a third dimensional construct. But faith has always told us, and I'm not talking about religion, I'm just talking about faith, whether spiritual or religious, right? There are things that are bigger than us, but we can't touch it and feel it. So people say, it doesn't exist. Really? Can you prove that? You can't. And science continues to move forward, but it still can't explain everything. So going back to quantum physics in the 50s and 60s, we lived in this world of Newtonian physics for a very, very long time, right? Quantum physics only explains 0.0000009% of all things that exist in the world. It's an infinitesimally small amount of things. But yet those 0.00009% of things exist in everything. Yeah. 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 So I started always talking about this idea of fourth dimensional leadership, right? And the idea is that if you can get somebody's heart and soul into what they do, then all of a sudden you will unlock their superpower, right? Their superpower is that they as an individual exist out of 1 out of 7.7 billion. They are unique. Right? There may be people who are similar, but they are unique. If you can tap into that superpower and enable them to start to talk just the way you did and actually believe that there are things that they can do that no other human on earth can do, holy crap, you just shifted the game. So as a company, what we've done is we've built a tool set that starts to tell you what the first glimpse into what their superpower is, right? So you know that they're different. You know that they exist differently and that they have some skills. And if you go in with saying, hey, I'm going to continue to keep you in a three-dimensional construct, Timmy, I need you to work at the front desk and I need you to work on the shelves. And that's just the bottom line, right? You'll never get the directed energy of that laser. You'll only have the 300-watt light bulb. A 300-watt light bulb puts out a lot of light, but probably 70% of that is heat. But when you go to 300-watt laser, almost 100% of that is heat, which is why it burns through steel. It's directed energy, which is exactly what you're talking about, right? Quantum physics talks about the fact that anything that is in the world that exists is just a manifestation of energy. That's it. So a thought is energy. Yeah. So now all of a sudden, as a company, what we've built is this potentially the first snapshot as a way to find out what each individual's. I mean, gosh, this is to say this is rudimentary is an understatement, right? But it's the first measuring stick for what someone's energy capability is. And just think if we start to exist on the fourth dimension, 300-watt light bulb versus 300-watt laser, it's just a whole different ballgame, right? And let me give you some numbers around that. So we've done some work for a company where they're a pretty large organization, got a couple thousand employees. We took some of their data. We started to show them what it would look like if, on a scale of 0 to 100, 100 is being very good, like on a test, right? 100 is an A plus, and 0 is it's not a very effective. So we talk in terms of effective and ineffective. If everybody in the organization moved to an effectiveness of 80 or higher, so everyone's getting a B on that test or higher, there is a lift of 33% for that company. Without changing a single thing, without changing a single person, there's a 33% lift in revenue generation for that company. Here's the thing. It's not 33% that just goes to the top and then has all this profit and all these costs and stuff that come out of it. It's 33% that goes to the top, and it actually goes directly to the bottom line because nothing has changed. Almost all of that goes to the bottom line. So go ahead. Oh, well, the thing is, um, you'll find I love my sayings, Josh. Um, if most companies look at profit as the prime directive for that company, right? But it's very short-sighted because it's not a holistic view of humans. It's we got to just do this. If you look at empathy as the prime directive, profit comes along for the ride. Right? If you have Timmy doing shelves the way he wants, and he realizes why doing the front desk is actually in his best interest for not only himself, but also for the company and the next job that he wants to take, he's going to do it, and he's going to do it well, and he's going to innovate in that role. And he's going to figure out how to do it the most efficient and effective way possible for himself and for the company. Guess what? You just achieved profitability because he's also doing the shelves incredibly profitable. You didn't have to ask him to do it. He did it himself. So profit comes along for the ride. Will he achieve 80% productivity? Yeah, there's a pretty damn good chance he'll get there by himself because he'll ask questions on how to get there. He's engaged. 74% of all employees in the United States are disengaged in the workplace. There's a bigger answer to that. Um, political parties in the United States, there has been a lot of partisanship in between Republicans and Democrats, and I'm not saying either one is right or wrong. But what is the primary thing that comes out is most people are centrists. They're not purely Republican. They're not purely Democrat. They're somewhere in the middle, right? We've made our political system black and white, but most people are right here, somewhere in the middle. They may have more Democratic leanings. They may have more Republican leanings, but very few people are party line toe the party line, right? They just have to make a choice. The same way, that's the way management is done in most often cases. I got to be hard-nosed about this. I know this is not fun, but this is what I got to do. And there's some people who are willing to be more hard-nosed than others, right? And I got to get Timmy to do this job. It doesn't really matter. Timmy, do this job. Guess what? Timmy's looking for a way out as soon as he gets a job somewhere else. And on the other side of it, you had the management of that person who's may not necessarily give him the support structure to make mistakes. You got to get him on that front desk 6 hours a day out of 8. Well, guess what? He has to do black and white. So he's only looking to achieve the black and white expectations of the role. You got to be sitting at that desk for 6 hours. He's sitting there for 6 hours, but he's playing on his phone the whole time because he doesn't like the job. I'm doing what you told me to do because that's what you expect, right? I'm doing what, and that manager continues to get frustrated because Timmy's not leaning in. He's not picking up the phone when it rings. Well, you never told me to pick up the phone. So there, yeah, he doesn't know why he's doing the job. He knows how he's doing the job. That's why expectations are people keep talking about expectations. Expectations are different for both people, right? The manager keeps telling you, I told you to sit the job and take care of customer service. I don't know what customer service means because I've never done customer service before. Right? So he just answers anybody who comes in because they're a customer. He doesn't know it's a customer calling on the phone. Right. But now if you tell him, Timmy, I need you there because we need somebody to be able to, and we pride ourselves in being able to pick up the phone and talk to our customers and give them a friendly voice on the phone. He's going to change his behavior. He's going to change the way he responds. He's going to ask more questions. He's going to pick up the phones. He's going to tell customers, hold on one second, I got a phone ringing here. And he's going to say, ma'am, I got someone waiting for me. Can you give me 3 minutes and I'll be right back with you? Or can you give me a number? And he's going to talk differently because he understands why. So a lot of people in the political system have become disenfranchised because that's why other parties continue to pop up and people continue to, because they've gotten so disenfranchised from Republican or Democrat. They're like, I want to go Libertarian. I want to go Tea Party or whatever else, right? Green Party. Because that black and white party line does not represent them. And they're frustrated by it. And how many people have said we need more parties? No, that's because they don't feel like they're being accurately represented because the Democratic Party has 49 issues and they agree with 17 of them. Right? Yeah. And they only agree with 12 of the Republican Party. So it's by default, they have to go to that one, right? Yeah. The good news is there was a book that was written, good or maybe some perspective put on it. There was a book, it's called Red and Blue or something like that. And it talks about the fact that this level of partisanship in the United States, this is the 24th time it's been this significant. So as bad as we think it is, it's actually happened during Thomas Jefferson went to France, and a lot of people thought he was a complete traitor because he was in France and the way he was voting. So people would not vote for, at that point in time, Democrats and Republicans have swapped a couple of times. He was a Republican at the time, which would be traditionally Democratic type issues today. So nobody would vote Republican just because Thomas Jefferson and friends, because he was the ambassador there. People George Washington wanted to leave the country at one point in time because he said this is ridiculous. During the Vietnam War, there was huge partisanship in terms of whether we should be fighting a war or we shouldn't be fighting the war. Anyway, many different occurrences like this have occurred. So fortunately, it's not that uncommon. Okay. I haven't. Hmm. Hmm. So, have you ever heard of the hero's journey? So, the hero's journey is that every great epic, every great story, every lasting story throughout the course of time, talking back to ancient India, ancient Egypt, ancient Greece. If you look at any of those stories through to today, the hero's journey persists in every one of them. If you get a chance, go look it up on Google. You'll get a nice little cycle. Up at the top, you've got this idea of what is known to the individual. And they start to see that there's some supernatural force that they've got to overcome, some change that they're not ready for. In order to get to, and that's in the known because they perceive it through a set of blue lenses, right? Because that's the only way they can see the world. That's the only way they've ever seen the world. And then they meet a guide or they meet someone who is going to help them look at a different perspective, a different way. And that guide tells them, hey, there's a world that has rosy glasses instead of blue glasses. Have you ever seen that? And they're like, wait, I didn't even know that it exists. And from that point of meeting that person, they start seeing all these pundits or these people who talk about these amazing things that are going to happen or these massive challenges that you will have. They go through the cycle, and that's where most people start to get really disenfranchised. They're very disheartened. This is where people give up, right? And I don't know if you've ever heard that the key to some of the greatest individuals that have ever existed is persistence and grit. That's it. There's a lady named Angela Duckworth who wrote a book called Grit. That's it. That's all that matters is grit, perseverance, continue punching away at it. So you go through this thing until you get to this pit of despair, where they're just like, I give up. This is terrible. I don't know why I'm doing this. This is a waste of my time. Why am I crazy to even think like this? Because everyone else is getting on fine with their life, and I'm stupid enough to do this. Right? You doing a podcast, or all of your colleagues doing a podcast, or your contemporaries doing a podcast? Maybe, likely not. And sometimes like, why am I spending time doing this thing? Right? And then you start seeing little nuggets of things like, can't put your finger on it, but there's something there. And you start seeing this, you get to this pit of despair, and then all of a sudden you have this revelation, this transformation. It's like the the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. Huge pain, huge suffering, huge challenge, right? Huge work. And you say, oh, there is a different world that I haven't seen before. There is a set of rosy glasses that I can wear. And this idea of this fourth turning, it sounds like someone's kind of getting this pit of despair, right? Things are going to get terrible. And once they think things get terrible, then you start to say, oh, but there's a whole nother way. And then you start this, what they call the atonement or that transformation, where you start to see things in a completely different way than you've ever seen before. And you can't go back to see things the way you did before because your perspective has changed. Does that make sense? And it's a cycle that happens. They say when history repeats itself, that's exactly what it is. Right? It does over and over again. How it repeats itself is slightly different because history is never the same, but the cycles seem to get shorter and shorter because our speed at which we can, because there's more information, we can start to see those cycles faster. This changes. So, I don't know. Is this all still interesting? Good, good. Yeah. So, look, for me, this is all about this idea of being able to empower 10 million people to live intentionally. That's my personal goal. 10 million people to live intentionally. That's my why. If you've listened to that Simon Sinek's speech, start with why. Everybody needs to be able to understand what their why is, and in order to be able to do that, that's what I've created as a company with some others. Created a company so that everybody can figure out what their why is, and they're allowed to live their life by their why, which allows them to lean into their superpower and become their greatest, unlock their own greatest potential. Because we're not thinking in 3 dimensions anymore. We're thinking bigger than that. Yeah. I mean, someone has said to me that I'm a student. I'm always learning. And I heard a guy once say, he's like, yeah, but everybody's always learning, whether they say it or not. That's table stakes, right? So saying that I'm an eternal learner is, the basic way he said it, and I think I agree with this, is I get that. Everybody's learning, whether you admit it or not. You're learning every day. That's it. So it's kind of like, all right. What is important is that you're constantly unlearning, right? What works for me in my 40s what I learned in my 30s does not work for me in my 40s. What worked for me in my 30s is not what I learned in my 20s, right? So I have to constantly keep taking down those structures of what I learned, how a business ran, right? And start saying, what have I just learned today that is different than what I learned yesterday? So if I'm constantly making space for things in my head that no longer apply, and I'm creating a better model, it's because I'm constantly pushing up my perspective higher and higher, and I see things differently. And my job is to empower others to continue that journey. They start to walk up the mountain as well. As they start to see that, I get to go higher up too, right? Rising tide raises all boats. So was this a helpful way to kind of walk through these things? Good. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Um, Someone has given me a kind of a profound way of thinking about things. Many people are in the space of doing all the time. What do I do, right? And she said to me, look, we're human beings. So stop worrying about doing so much and start worrying about being. When I'm talking to my kids, when I'm talking to my family, stop thinking about all the stuff I've got to do because I'm not paying attention to them. Being more present. Stop trying to think about where I'm going to take the question. Just seek to understand what they're saying. Gosh, it's like going from black and white T to 8K, an 8K TV, right? The richness and the depth of what you hear just is on a whole nother level of wonderful. You just start hearing things from people, not trying to judge them, just trying to hear where they're coming in from a point of view or what they're saying, whether it's my 7-year-old or my 10-year-old or my brother who's just a few years younger than me. I've been spending a lot of time just sitting and just trying to truly internalize how they see the world because I learned so much from them. Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. Um, the analogy I give to my kids is that I'm going to invite people to say this beautiful vista at the top of a mountain. Say, hey, let's go on a hike. You got to see what's up here on the top of this mountain. It's gorgeous up there. Now, some people can say, I don't want to go on that hike. It's too much work. Gosh. And I say, you got to come with me. And they come in, they just complain the whole way about every single step. Oh, this is uphill and they're sweating. It's hot outside, whatever else, right? Or you can go along on that ride and say, gosh, this is beautiful. I've never seen trees like this before. I've never seen this path before. You just enjoy the journey or the conversation on the way up to the top. Listen, the work is the same. Whether you hate it or you love it, the work is exactly the same. So that's your choice. You can say my life is happening to me, or you can say it's happening for me. You can enjoy the conversation, or you can not relish the conversation. But when you get to the top, that's when you get to say, gosh, I've enjoyed the whole ride. And it's hard work, no matter what. But when you get to the top, you look back and you say, gosh, that was so much freaking fun. So hard work is inevitable. It's just whether you enjoy the journey, because the journey is all that really matters. And you might as well smile doing it, because you get the opportunity to learn and hear from others. And kind of leaning to what I just answered before, you get to see the world from a different set of lenses, and all of a sudden, it just appears more beautiful and more elegant in how it exists. Yeah, that's right. Social media. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can look me up and find me. Vinay. Last name is Raman, Raman. So you can find me there. Feel free to reach out. Love for you to engage with my posts. I'd love to get people to give me their comments on posts. Whether you agree or disagree, let's talk about it. I'd love to understand your perspective. I'm still learning. You can go to our website, carmo.com, CAARMO.com, two A's there. That's my company. And you can also find us on LinkedIn, same company name, carmo.com. So appreciate it. And if you've got different thoughts, I would love to hear what they are. I'm still learning. Good. I'm happy to hear that. And I wrote jot down a bunch of notes here along the way. I do mentoring for some high school kids in terms of business plans and business pitch competitions and stuff. And I got to tell you, to some degree, I feel like a little bit of a fraud, because I walk into these 16, 17-year-old kids and I start telling them some of my experiences that I've had, and how I might adjust how I think about something, or how they could look at something differently. I probably walk away from those things learning a lot more. They may not be ready to see it the way what I digest, because I'm just at a different stage of life than they're. But if they walk away from it with two things, I probably walk away from it with 10. And the more people I talk to, I just feeds this furious curiosity that I have. So yeah, it's funny. I think a lot of people think that as that technician, as that junior employee, that's where all the learning occurs. Actually, the greatest learning occurs when you become that leader, that manager, or that coach. When you used to think, "Hey, this is the best way to do X," right? But then all of a sudden, you see someone who does it differently. Like, gosh, that thought never even occurred to me. And I ask my team all the time, "So, what do you guys see here?" And I've stopped telling them what I see, because I so often find out how limited my thinking was, when I hear it from them, I was like, just like you said, I never even considered that. I never even saw that. That was a possibility. And they solve it so elegantly in a way that I can't. And I love that word, elegant, right? Things should become elegant. The more people you ask, the more elegant things become. Yeah, massively effective together. Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. Super. Looking forward to it. Bye.
Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You are a awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor? Can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations, you're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel, change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome and see you next time.